Joining us now, former BYU national champion, dual threat BYUtv sports analyst, and the man who has 2 Y-Factor wins, Blaine Fowler.
Yes, he does.
Blaine, props to you for almost calling another one last night with Craig Bills.
Well, you know what? I figured that Houston was a team that was going to spread things out, and that Craig would have to have a big game if they were going to be successful defensively. And he did. He led the team defensively again this week. But, to win it as a defender, to win the Y-Factor, to win over the fans, you have to have a marquee play. In that first week he had the big pick. And so it's hard to pick a defender. It's kind of like the Heisman Trophy balloting. If there's a good quarterback or running back, it's hard to win that thing. So I took a chance. I was proud of the way Craig played, but I kind of had a feeling all along that Dave's boy Jamal would win this thing.
Well, Dave had the first pick. He's kind of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's had multiple first picks. One was Anthony Bennett in Mitchell Juergens, and one was LeBron James in Jamal Williams,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And here's the thing: we're getting far enough into the season now. They're going to have to start transferring some of our guys to A factors. Like, Taysom's been an A factor since the beginning of the year. I think Jamal's going to have to be an A factor. And you know what? It might be time to take Craig Bills and Jordan Leslie and make them A factors as well, because it's obvious
We're
that
close.
those guys are going to be the most consistent players from on a week-to-week basis. So now, are they really a Y factor or an X factor when we just expect that they're going to be one of the top contributors? So we need to talk about it. It may be another week, but we're going to have to take some guys off the list of draft picks, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to look. There's a national committee and a long legislation and red tape rule book to actually get that done, which is our Monday meeting with the talent generally. So we'll figure that out. But congratulations to Dave on the victory there. Our Twitter question today is, what's your biggest takeaway from BYU's win against Houston? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, to have a special season and to be undefeated, you have to have a game or two during the season where you don't play perfect, but you come away with it anyhow. And I never thought that game was in doubt at any time last night. I never thought that BYU wasn't in control. Houston made some runs, and BYU
I felt the
made
same
errors.
way, Blaine. I felt the exact same way.
Yeah, BYU made errors that allowed Houston to stay in the game. The last minute 17 or whatever it was of that first half, when BYU has two turnovers and Houston turns those 2 turnovers into 12 points, immediately, that put Houston back in the ball game. BYU had a number of aggressive errors in terms of penalties. We had a whiff punt or a whiff punch where a guy gets ejected. Hey, man, come on. If you're going to hit the heavy bag, at least hit it, right? At least hit it.
The whiff.
Get something for your money. So there were a number of those kinds of penalties. There were penalties on third down plays that extended drives, for Houston. Of course, Houston had a few of those that helped BYU early in the game. But all in all, you have to have a couple of ugly wins. I'm going to categorize this as an ugly win just because it was so far from perfect, yet in my mind they were always comfortably ahead in that game. I never felt that the game was in jeopardy at any point. And the bar is so high now with how well BYU played, particularly in the third quarter of that Texas game, that if they don't go out and score in the 40s and just dominate their opponent, we feel like they're below expectations. And you know what? They are below their potential when they don't dominate, but in a long season, you have to have some games where you don't play perfect and you still come away with a win if you want to do something special.
I mentioned this earlier with Jaron, but in '96, when BYU went 14-1, they had a 3-point win over SMU, 17-14.
How about '84? Did you have games like the Houston game?
Oh yeah, we had a couple of games. We didn't play particularly well against Hawaii, and that's a team that we should have dominated.
18-13.
But we came away with we didn't play particularly well against Wyoming that year, and got what I would call an ugly win, where we should have just dominated both of those teams. But for some reason or another, whether it was lack of attention because we should have dominated them or whatever it was. And I look at BYU on this game. You remember in the preseason we were talking about teams that scared me, and this was one of them. And the reason was style of play, so matchups, they spread you out, especially coming off of a game where we knew Texas was just going to try to be physical with them. So it's a completely different mindset. You take your team, you go on the road to the East Coast to play UConn, then you fly back, then you turn around, you fly down to Austin and play in front of 100,000 plus, and now you got a short week to prepare for a completely different team. I felt like when it was time for BYU to put their foot on the gas pedal last night and just blow that team out, and when that opportunity came, they put their foot on the gas, but there just wasn't any gas left in the tank to be able to accelerate. And so they just muddled through the next 2 quarters, and they got a win. And that's okay, because now they get 9 days to prepare for Virginia, and I feel like they'll be a lot more energetic. They have a lot more in terms of game planning ready to go. And this was a game, the Houston game, that really scared me because of the way the schedule's set up and because of their style of play. And so sometimes you just got to be happy to get a win, get out of there, and move on.
Guess what? John O'Korn and those receivers.
John Children of O'Korn.
They're going to win some games in the American Conference. Let's talk about BYU's quarterback, Blaine. Taysom Hill, 360 total yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown. Had a couple of interceptions, although I'm not going to call either of those bad passes. Rather, one of them was just a dynamic play by Trayvon Stewart of Houston. Assess his performance. He didn't have that iconic moment, but I still feel like as a Heisman Trophy candidate, when his team needed him to step up late in the game, he found a way to win. He was not going to let BYU lose that game. Is that not Heisman-esque enough?
Oh, let me put it this way. If he's not playing quarterback last night, BYU loses. Like, if they just have an average guy playing quarterback, just a game manager playing quarterback, they lose to Houston last night. I mean, he won the game for BYU. I mean, his rushing, because let's remember, a lot of the runs that he had last night were not designed run plays. I mean, a lot of his big gains and first down conversions were on plays where he's dropping back or making a read and just takes off and runs and wills himself to a big play. And none bigger than at the end of the game when they're in their 2-minute stall offense, he gets a critical first down and doesn't give the ball back to Houston. He gets met 3 yards behind the first down marker and just runs over guys, spins out, and gets the first down like we've seen him so many times. That was a big play. That's as big as a 60-yard play. And so yeah, without Taysom Hill, they don't win the ball game. He put him on his back last night when everybody else looked tired, and he just absolutely carried him. That's what a Heisman Trophy candidate does.
And BYU ran 96 plays, for goodness sake. 26 rushes by Taysom, 34 throws. There was an 8-minute and 8-second period where BYU threw an interception. Alani Fua had a personal foul on a 3rd down and goal. Mitchell Juergens fumbles. There's the Hail Mary TD, and Scott Arlano does not get the first down despite his best effort to try and convince the refs that he did indeed make the first down. That period for me is 5 unforced errors that are pretty correctable for BYU.
Yeah, that's the bright side of things is for the rest of the season, Taysom shouldn't have to carry the team like he did. There's things that they can clean up in terms of discipline, in terms of penalties and those kinds of things. And I think they're going to get better play out of their offensive line as the season progresses. And so, yeah, and Jamal Williams, let's not forget the game that Jamal had, because that was not an easy 100-yard rushing game. I mean, he had to work for every yard he got last night. He didn't have any big explosive plays. He didn't go for 40 yards on any play.
A long of 16.
Right, and so that was a very workmanlike effort out of Jamal Williams. So they went out and they basically physically beat Houston last night. They were more physical, and they won the game because they're more physical. The thing that this does is it goes to show this is 2 weeks in a row that two teams have said our number one priority is we are not going to let Taysom Hill hurt us running the football, and we are going to have our number one priority be stop the run game. So, and
323 yards later.
Neither of them could do it. And so what that tells you is that if a team actually stops BYU from running the football sometime this season, they're going to have to commit a lot of resources in terms of manpower to do it. They're going to have to play 8 and 9 guys up there to do it. And then BYU is going to get big plays in the passing game. Because with 5 and 6 in the box and even 7 in the box, two very talented teams defensively with team speed all over the place could not stop BYU from running the ball. So the team that does it, if that's Virginia next week, my feeling is Virginia's going to have to commit so many resources to stopping the run that they're going to leave one-on-one opportunities on the outside, and BYU will make big plays in the pass game. So that's the positive of what to take out of last night is you can't stop BYU from running it. even if you're a decent defense, and I do believe that Houston has a good defense. And you said, Spencer, that they'll win games in the American Athletic Conference.
Yes.
They absolutely will.
Yes.
That's a quality defense over there.
Blaine Fowler with us on BYU Sports Nation. Probably, about 11 hours after finishing calling the BYUtv game day replay between BYU and Houston. He's up early with us. This tweet
early. It's 10:43, man.
It's still early.
Wake up.
Early. I got home from the game at 1 a.m. I got into bed by 1:30, and I got up at 7:15 and went and worked out. What are you talking about early, man?
Settle down, Blaine. Okay, we can't all be Mr. Bionic. Oh, by the way, we talked to your wife the other day in the lobby, and she said, "Isn't he hot?"
What?
Yeah, that happened. Yep, you can tell her I said that too. We thought it was pretty fun. Okay, there's this tweet in on Twitter, and there's this weird mojo going on across BYU Sports Nation about this is a disappointing win. What would you say to the skeptics that, hey, BYU was exposed, like maybe they're not as good as we thought they are? What's your reaction to that?
No, I think you can say it's a disappointing win, but go back to the schedule and the short week and the 2 road trips at great distance and the energy extended there and coming in. And to me, yeah, BYU looked tired and a little bit worn down in the second half of that football game. But they get a win. And Houston, we're not giving Houston enough credit. I think when Houston lost to University of Texas San Antonio, we completely dismissed them as a team.
Yes.
And this is a team that still has talent. They've got some issues offensively because they have got to get better up front. And they have talent at the skill positions. They've got really talented wide receivers. O'Korn is a talented player. They just got to figure out a way to keep people out of his space. And when BYU was most effective was when they got after him and blitzed him like UTSA. And, oh, by the way, UTSA is a pretty good football team with a lot of resources and a very good coach and a lot of team speed. And so I think Houston's better than people give them credit for. And you know what? BYU didn't play their best game last night. They didn't play perfect, but they still won, and they never were in jeopardy of losing that football game. Sometimes you got to do that. You know, people point to great. You talked about the 96 team. We talked about the 84 team. One of the best teams, and I hate to even say this on BYU radio, but one of the best teams we've ever had in the state here was the 2004 Utah team.
Sure.
That's a team that at the end of the year, I wanted them to play anybody. I'm like, bring on Auburn, bring on USC.
Absolutely.
And of course,
Pitt,
Matt. I know, and they ended up with Pitt, which was just a tragedy. But I think they could have played with anybody that year. So that team, very similar to the 96 BYU team, very similar to the 84 BYU team. I remember the Air Force game that year. They got down, I think, 14-0 to start that game. It was like, what in the world is going on? And they were able to come back. You've got to have 1 or 2 ugly wins where you don't play your best and you still scratch one out. Let's chalk the Houston game up to that.
Check.
And then have them move on from that. I expect with 9 days prep time for them to dominate University of Virginia. And you know what? I think Virginia's better than they were last year. We'll see. We'll get a real good test this weekend when Virginia plays UCLA. Louisville, when they play Louisville.
Yep.
And so I think Louisville is a quality football team, and we'll see how Virginia does against them. But my early thought is that Virginia's a better football team, and I still think with 9 days prep and a chance to heal up a little bit and feel better, that BYU at home will dominate Virginia.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Let's finish with this. After further review coming up Tuesday at 8 Eastern, what's a play or two that we might see on there that you want to do some digital illustration with? Well,
we're going to show a number of plays where Taysom's running the football and show what Houston did to try to contain him and why they still weren't able to contain him and why he's being so effective running the football. So we'll take a look at that. We're also going to show you some things that BYU can do better. You know, touchdown pass. Was it to Greenberry? We're going to break that down and talk about technique for Rob Daniel. We'll let Brian Logan show us how his technique could be better. And you know what? Technique you can fix. So maybe in the Virginia game, Rob Daniel gets in that same position, defending that same route against a Virginia receiver, and he does a better job. So we'll break down some things for you. We'll get out on the field, and we'll show you some things in terms of technique. how BYU can improve and get better next week, and why they are going to improve and get better next week.
Make sure Dave signs the permission slip this week to get on that field with you guys, okay?
I know. Every time he's out there, I get really, really nervous. I think he's going to get hurt. I'm really nervous about that.
Blaine Fowler on his way back to the gym, but not before he stops and gives his wife a hug for that huge compliment. Blaine, always good to talk to you, man.
It's Brenda's birthday this weekend,
nice.
So we got to be good to Brenda. It's her birthday this weekend.
Or every week, right?
Hey, great insight, man.
This week it really is. Her birthday's Sunday, so make sure when you guys see her next week, you tell her happy birthday.
You
done.
got it.
It is down and done. We'll see you on After Further
All
Review.
right, guys. We'll see you.